الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام والتحية والإكرام على النبي الأمي العربي القرشي المكي المدني الهاشمي، صاحب قاب قوسين، محبوب رب المشرقين والمغربين، جد الحسن والحسين، النبي الحرمين والإمام القبلتين والرسول الثقلين، الذين سمي في السماء بأحمد وفي الأرض بأبي القاسم محمد، صلى على محمد وآل محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين المنتخبين المنتجبين، لا سيما بقية الله في الأراضين، روحي وأرواح العالمين للتراب مقدمه الفداء، واللعنة الدائمة الباقية على أعدائهم ومنكر فضائلهم وغاصب حقوقهم أجمعين، من يوم عداوتهم إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد، فقد قال إمام علي بن الحسين زين العابدين عليه الصلاة والسلام: أؤتينا العلم والحلم والفصاحة والسماحة والبلاغة والشجاعة والمحبة في قلوب المؤمنين. صلوات. For the love and honor of Imam Zain al-Abidin alayhi salam, can we have a second salawat? And to hasten the reappearance of our awaited Saviour, can we have a third one in your loudest voices? This part of the sermon of Imam Al-Sajjad alayhi salatu wasalam in the court of Yazid, which I've selected for our discussion today, is right at the beginning of the sermon, when the Imam alayhi salatu wasalam is introducing himself. And the background to this sermon, of course, is that immediately prior to the sermon being delivered, Sayyidah Zainab Salamullah alayha has already delivered a sermon. And of course the context on which the sermon is delivered is also very well known. The fact that it's in a place where people don't know much about Ahlul Bayt alayhim salatu wasalam. As far as they're concerned, or as far as they know, as far as the religion that has reached them in Damascus, is that all they know is that we have to believe in Allah and the Prophet, and after them we have to believe in the Banu Umayyah as our leaders and as our Khalifas. So in such a context where people are entirely ignorant about Ahlul Bayt alayhim salatu wasalam, they don't know anything, the Imam alayhi salatu wasalam delivers this most amazing sermon. And before I talk about this particular part of the sermon, which is very important, I want to go back to first of all, the context in which he finds himself. What is Damascus like? What are they thinking that the Imam alayhi salatu wasalam delivers this sermon? And then secondly, some of the prerequisites and the lessons that the Imam alayhi salatu wasalam gives in terms of, for any person who wants to come onto the pulpit and deliver something, what are the prerequisites that this person should have in mind before they deliver anything from the mimbar. So firstly, there's a very famous story which is often recited in the Messiah, that when the caravan of Imam Hussain, incidentally on this particular night, the night of the preceding the first of Zaffar, which is when they arrived into Damascus, when they arrive, there is a person, a very old man, who comes up to the Imam. And he comes up to him and he says, "Praise be to Allah, who disgraced you, who humiliated you, and gave honor to Yazid and to Abu Sufyan." Now can you imagine, here is the Imam who has been through everything that's happened to him in Karbala. All these things that have happened to him, all these people who have been killed in front of him, all this burning of the tent, his family being taken as prisoner, he's seen all of this. And then for him to walk into a place and this man say to him that, "Praise be to Allah who humiliated you, who disgraced you." What would have been the normal reaction? The normal reaction, if somebody comes up and swears at me, what do? What's my instinctive reaction? I want to swear back at this person. If I'm physically able, I'm going to try and hit this person. Why did this person speak to me like this? The Imam ﷺ, what is his reaction? He knows that this is a place where they don't know about Ahlul Bayt ﷺ. They don't know anything. So how do I change this person? The Imam ﷺ is thinking, I have the power to change this person if he knows something. So the Imam says to him, "Have you read the Holy Quran?" He says, "Yes, I've read the Holy Quran." The Imam says, "Have you read the verse in the Holy Quran, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, قُلْ لَا أَسْأَلُكُمْ عَلَيْهِ أَجْرًا إِلَّا الْمَوَدَّةَ فِي الْقُرْبَى." The man says, "I've read this verse." The Imam says, this qurba which is referred to in this verse refers to us Ahlul Bayt. The Imam says to him, "Have you read the verse? وَآتِ ذِي الْقُرْبَى حَقُّهُ," and give the nearest ones their right that is due to them. He says, "I've read this verse." The Imam says the qurba referred to in this verse is us Ahlul Bayt. The Imam asks him, he says, "Have you read the verse, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, إِنَّمَا يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ لِيُذْهِبَ عَنْكُمُ الرِّجْسَ أَهْلَ الْبَيْتِ وَيُطَهِّرَكُمْ تَطْهِيرًا." And the man says, "Yes, I've read this verse." The Imam says the Ahlul Bayt referred to in this verse refers to us. We are the family of the Holy Prophet. This man is left astounded. He says, "Swear by Allah that you are the family of the Holy Prophet." He doesn't know. He says, "Swear by Allah that you're the family of the Holy Prophet." The Imam says, "I swear by Allah that we are the family of the Holy Prophet. There is nobody on this earth right now who is closer to the Holy Prophet than us." At this particular moment, the narration states that this person throws off his turban. And he asks the Imam for forgiveness. He says, "Can you forgive me? I did not know." This is the state of the city of Damascus at this particular time when the sermon is about to be delivered. Now you can imagine, he's one person who came up to the Imam. Everybody in this city thinks in this same way. Now the Imam comes forward into the court of Yazid. And when he enters the court of Yazid, there is a person who is on the pulpit. And he is praising the family of Abu Sufyan and sending la'ana upon Amir al-Mu'mineen and upon Imam Hussain. When the Imam witnesses this situation, he says, he calls out to the person from beneath, from underneath. He calls out to him. He says to him, "You have purchased the happiness, the pleasure of the people in exchange for the pleasure of Allah. And you bought the displeasure of Allah. You bought His wrath by doing this. And what a bad trade you did. What a bad exchange you did, that you bought the pleasure of the people. But as a result of that, you bought the displeasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then he turns to Yazid and he says to Yazid, he says, Yazid, give me permission that I may go upon these planks of wood and say something. Now this is very interesting and it's very important. The Imam alayhi salam doesn't call it a mimbar. He says planks of wood. The word used in Arabic is a'wad, planks of wood. No mimbar. Why? We would say, Yabna Rasulillah, this thing which you've called planks of wood, it looks like a mimbar. It has the steps like a mimbar. And it's being used as a mimbar because people are going on top of it and addressing people. Why then do you refuse to call it a mimbar? The Imam might reply, he might say, have you forgotten that when the Holy Prophet of Islam was returning back from the farewell Hajj, he stopped the people. And what did he say? He said, I want a mimbar. The Holy Prophet of Islam on the way back from the Hajj, what did he say? He said, I want a mimbar. They said to him, Ya Rasulullah, we're stopped in the middle of a desert. There's no trees around. How are we going to make a mimbar? So the Holy Prophet of Islam suggests to them, what you do is you take the camel saddles and you put them all on one on top of the other, and I will stand on top of the camel saddles and address you. That didn't look like a mimbar. It wasn't even made of wood. It didn't have any steps. But the Holy Prophet of Islam called that a mimbar. The Imam would tell us that first of all, remember that looks and appearances might be deceiving. Just because it looks like a mimbar doesn't mean it's a mimbar. If something is to be considered a mimbar, it is on the basis of what is said on the mimbar. If this place is used to talk about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to talk about His Prophet, to talk about the family of the Holy Prophet, then it's considered a mimbar. But if it's used to send insults upon the family of the Holy Prophet and praise the enemies of Allah, then it's not worthy to be called a mimbar. It's not worthy to be called a mimbar. It will be called planks of wood because that's what they are. And the Imam says, give me permission to go on these planks of wood so that I may say something. Then he gives us two more tips. As people who want to come onto the mimbar, he tells us two more things. He tells us, he says, let me go onto these planks of wood so that I may say something that will gain the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and will be a source of reward for the people. I.e., when somebody wants to come onto the mimbar and he wants to say something, then these are the two objectives that he should have in mind. That the first thing is that that person who comes onto the mimbar should be doing it to seek the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and not the pleasure of the people. And secondly, it should have something in it that will give people, that will be a cause for reward, for jaza for the people as well. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Now the Imam comes onto these planks of wood and he begins to address the people. And after praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, for those of you who know me, they know me. For those of you who don't know me, for those of you who don't know me, this is my introduction. This is my introduction. This is who I am. And he starts with this. He says, أُعْطِينَا سِتًّا وَفُضِّلْنَا بِالصَّبْرِ. We've been given 6 things and we have been preferred over everybody else through 7. And it's these 6 things that I want to talk about today. He says we've been given 6 things. What are these 6 things? Al-ilma, wal-hilma, wal-samahata, wal-fasahata, wal-balaghata, wal-shuja'ata, wal-muhabbata fi qulub al-mu'min. We've been given, the first thing that we've been given is knowledge. That every single representative of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from the beginning of time till the end, has been preferred over creation because of their knowledge. On the first day of creation, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said what? He said, I'm creating my Khalifa on the earth. Surah Al-Baqarah verses 32, 35. I'm creating my Khalifa on the earth. And the angels objected. They said, are you going to create someone who's going to create bloodshed and mischief on the earth? What did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reply to them with? What did He say? Did He say to them that no, they're not going to create bloodshed? Because that would have been untrue. Human beings are continually creating bloodshed on earth. Just today on the news you will have heard that on the last count 27 people had been killed in a shooting in the United States. So even till today, same thing. Even in this civilized, progressive time, human beings are still shedding each other's blood. But what does Allah say? He doesn't say no, they're not going to create mischief or they're not going to shed each other's blood. He doesn't entertain this. He says, Inni a'lamu ma la ta'lamun. I know and you don't know. I know and you don't know. He said to the angels. I.e. the criteria for selecting the Khalifa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the first day of creation was knowledge. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us time and time again, لَن تَجِدُوا لِسُنَّةِ اللَّهِ تَبْدِيلًا. And you will not find in the practice of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala any changes. That whatever He's made the policy on the first day, will continue to say the policy. If on the first day He decided that knowledge is going to be the criteria of my representatives, then from the first day till the last day, every single one of His representatives has to be the most knowledgeable in his respective time. And why shouldn't he be? Why shouldn't Imam Ali ibn Hussain alayhi salatu wasalam be the most knowledgeable one in his time? He's the inheritor of his grandfather Amirul Mu'mineen, who sat on the mimbar in Kufa and said, ask me whatever you want to ask me. Only he who has the confidence in his own knowledge can sit on the mimbar and make such a claim and be able to answer all the questions. Be able to answer every single one of those questions that were asked. Recite salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Then the next thing that the Imam says is something that is always in the narrations mentioned alongside knowledge. He says, ilma wal hilma. In numerous narrations. Ilm is not mentioned except with hilm. Indeed, the son of Imam Al-Sajjad, Imam Muhammad ibn Ali al-Baqir alayhi salatu wasalam says, he says in a very famous narration that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not joined two things together which are better than the joining of ilm with hilm. Joining of knowledge was not just patience, because if we translate hilm as patience, it would be an injustice to the word. Because of course, patience is sabr. And hilm is something more than that. The most accurate translation I could find, given the limitations of the English language, is forbearance. That it's not just patience. It's the ability to bear whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is putting you through. It's the ability to bear that difficult and easy times. All of those, whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is putting you through, it's the ability to bear that. And if you can bear that, then that is hilm. That it's not just, the scholars of old used to tell us that the difference between knowledge and wisdom. Of course, hilm is patience accompanied with wisdom, where you know what kind of patience is required at which particular time. The scholars of old used to say that the difference between knowledge and wisdom is that knowledge is to know something. If I know something, that is knowledge. But knowing when to say it is wisdom. Knowing when to use this knowledge and how to use this knowledge, how to present this knowledge, is wisdom. So the Imam ﷺ said we've been given these things, these 6 things. Ilm wal-hilm. Was-samah. And I'm telling you this third word, samaha, I struggled with this translation. I couldn't find anything that came close to defining samah in the English language. So I'll use a few words to try and convey the meaning. Most translations translate samaha as generosity. They say samaha means generosity. But there's other words for generosity in the Arabic language. There's sakhawa, and the Imam could have used that. So samaha therefore means it's something else. It's a bit more than just generosity. Again, the closest word that I could find in terms of one word defining this is magnanimity. That even when you're in a difficult situation, even when you've been put into difficult situations, your character, your akhlaq, your dealing with people does not change. It's very easy for me to say that I am living a good life, therefore I can be good to people. That's not the test. The test is if I'm going through a difficult time, if I am put into a difficult situation, am I still good to people? Is my akhlaq towards other people the same? Or has it changed? Just because I'm going through a difficult time, I'm now taking out all this anger on everybody else. Samaha. To highlight this, I'll give you an example from the life of the Imam. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. After the incident of Karbala, in the following year, in the 62nd year of Hijrah, the incident of Karbala takes place in the 61st year of Hijrah. In the 62nd year of Hijrah, Yazid orders that the whole of the city of Medina is to be ransacked. In history, this is referred to as the incident of Harra. When this is ordered and everybody in Medina finds out that this is going to happen, anybody who has the possibility that they can leave, they leave. The Imam ﷺ also leaves the city of Medina. He goes to a place, a city now in Saudi Arabia called Yambu, where Amirul Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib ﷺ during his time had planted lots of trees and actually created this into a city, turned it from a desert into a city. So the Imam ﷺ takes his family and himself out of Medina into this particular place. Now everybody knows that the Imam has gone to this place, he's gone outside of Medina, he's taken his whole family with him. Hussein ibn Namir, or Hussein ibn Namir, who, as I'm sure every one of you knows, is the one who pierces the lance into the chest of Ali al-Akbar. He comes towards the Imam with his family and he asks the Imam for refuge. He says to the Imam, you know that what is going to happen in Medina means that there's going to be bloodshed, there's going to be violation of women, there's going to be all kinds of haram and obscene acts which are going to take place. So I want you to give me refuge. The Imam gives him refuge. He gives him food, he gives him water. He's so shocked that he turns around and he says to the Imam, he says, maybe you didn't recognize me. Maybe you didn't recognize me. The Imam ﷺ says, no, I did recognize you. I know who you are. You are the one who killed my brother Ali Akbar. Can you imagine? Just imagine for a second. Just for a moment, think in your mind. A person who, leave murder one side, did something to hurt my brother. How would I feel about this person? How would I feel about this person? If somebody did something to make life difficult for my brother, how would I feel about this person? Would I be wanting to help this person? Would I be going out of my way and helping this person? The Imam says, I know who you are. You are the one who pierced that lance through the chest of my brother Ali al-Akbar. Now he's even more shocked, he's even more surprised. He says, then why did you give me refuge? Why then did you offer me refuge? The Imam ﷺ smiled. He said, that was your character and this is mine. That was your character. This is mine. This is Samaha. That's your character. It doesn't matter how you dealt with us. There will be no difference in my dealing with you, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala expects me to deal with you like this. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala expects you to deal with other people like this. This also helps us to understand why we have an objection. Some people might say, they say, why is it that you say that the people who came after the Holy Prophet and unjustly took away the Khilafah, why do you say bad things about them when Amirul Mu'mineen used to advise them? When during their time when they were Khalifas, Amirul Mu'mineen used to advise them. So why do you say that they were illegitimate? If Amirul Mu'mineen thought that they were illegitimate, then he would not have advised them. He would not have become their advisor. So how do I respond to this? How do I respond to this saying that Amirul Mu'mineen, why did he advise them? The same answer as the grandson Ali. The grandfather Ali alayhi salatu wasalam will say the same thing. He will say that was their character for taking away the rights from me. But I am still the Imam of the universe. I am the Imam of the universe. It's my responsibility to guide the people, whosoever comes to ask me. If this person comes towards me and he asks me, Amirul Mu'mineen, answer my question, and I know the answer to his question, it's my responsibility as the Imam to help him and answer his question, regardless of whether he's taken my rights or not. May we be sacrificed 1,000 times for having Imams like this, who every time they went into the court, they could have said to the people, they could have said that you usurped our rights, you took away what was rightfully ours. First you return those rights to us, then we'll answer your questions. He says, no, that was their character for taking away our rights. This is our character of helping people. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala. As far as benevolence is concerned, what can be more benevolent from the Imam alayhi salatu wasalam? What can be more benevolent from the Imam than the fact that on one occasion, Abu Hamza Thumali, a very famous companion to whom Dua Abu Hamza Thumali is attributed, and he's the one who's narrated it. He comes to the Imam and he's sitting in the presence of the Imam one time, and the birds start to chirp. And the Imam says to him, he says, Abu Hamza, do you know what the birds are saying? He says, Ya ibn Rasulullah, you're going to tell me. I don't know. The Imam says they are chirping because it's the time for when they receive the sustenance, when they receive the rizq. The Imam says, Abu Hamza, I'm giving you an advice. Benevolence. How benevolent is the Imam? He says, I'm giving you advice. He says, I desire for you not to sleep between the time of Fajr and sunrise. Why? Because this is the time when sustenance is distributed. And those who are awake at this particular time and engaged in supplication receive more in sustenance than those who are sleeping. Those who stay awake at this time and recite supplication will receive more than the ones who are sleeping. Next the Imam says, he says, ilma wal hilma wal samahata wal balagha. Eloquence. We've been given knowledge and forbearance and magnanimity and eloquence. Eloquence. Why shouldn't it be? Why shouldn't there be eloquence in this household? He's the grandson of the man whose sermons make Nahjul Balagha. And from a literary point of view, if you put Nahjul Balagha and Sahif al-Sajjadiyah next to each other, there's little to differentiate the two. One is in the form of sermons and the other is in the form of dua. But as far as a literary point of view, as far as eloquence is concerned, as far as the words that are used and the way that they are used are concerned, there's very little to separate the two. But indeed the Imam ﷺ, the rest of the sermon says I. But in this particular part, when he's talking about these characteristics, he says we. And some of the historians are of the view, some of the scholars are of the view that when he says we, he's referring to both himself and to his aunt Sayyidah Zainab Salamullah alayha. And as far as her eloquence is concerned, it's sufficient to say that the Imam of her time says, Anti alimatu ghayru mu'allima wa fahimatu ghayru mufahima. That you're the one who is learned without ever being taught, and who understands without ever being taught understanding. And as far as our eloquence is concerned, it's sufficient that particular moment in the court of Ibn Ziyad, when she was delivering that sermon, that Abdullah ibn Afif, a companion of Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salatu wasalam, who had become blind because he had lost one eye in the battle of Jamal and the other eye in the battle of Siffin. He turned to his companion, he shakes him and he says, has the day of judgment arrived? System, has the day of judgment arrived? His companion says, why are you asking such a question? What do you mean has the Day of Judgment arrived? Are you feeling okay? Abdullah ibn Afif says, no, I'm serious. Amirul Mu'mineen told me. He told me that after I pass away, the next time we're going to meet is going to be on the Day of Judgment. And right now in this court I hear the voice of Amirul Mu'mineen. Right now I hear the voice of Amirul Mu'mineen. His companion says to him, this isn't Amirul Mu'mineen. This is Zainab, daughter of Amirul Mu'mineen. This is Zainab, daughter of Amirul Mu'mineen. That her eloquence is so grand, is so great, that Abdullah ibn Afif, companion of the Imam, is saying, I sense that Amirul Mu'mineen is in the room. So the Imam says, Al-ilma wal-hilma wal-samahata wal-balagata wal-shuja'a. The fifth thing is shuja'a, bravery. Bravery. When we're sitting here in this majlis, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, everybody who's present here in this majlis, follower of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, loves Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. It's easy for the person to come onto the minbar and say something about Ahlul Bayt because everybody here loves Ahlul Bayt. There's going to be no problems for me, inshallah, once I get off. Because everybody loves Ahlul Bayt. So if I say something about Ahlul Bayt alayhi salatu salam, about their merits, about their greatness, about their characteristics and about how we're supposed to follow them, it's not a big deal. Everybody here follows Ahlul Bayt. They love Ahlul Bayt. They've come to this majlis because they love Ahlul Bayt. But in the court of Yazid, this was not the case. In the court of Yazid, this was not the case. The people present in the court of Yazid did not love Ahlul Bayt. They didn't even know about Ahlul Bayt. They had no loyalty even to the religion of Islam. It is mentioned that there were 700 delegates from various parts of the world. And most of them were not even Muslims. Yazid had invited all of them in order to impress upon them the fact that he had killed the rebel Hussein ibn Ali, and now he had been victorious. And this was a celebration of his victory. In such a situation, for the Imam to come up onto the pulpit, onto these planks of wood, and now talk about Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, to introduce Ahlul Bayt alayhi salatu salam, how much more bravery does one need to do that? Just to stand in front of a hostile crowd and to deliver the message of truth. Imam Sajjad alayhi salatu salam, by doing this, tells us that don't think that I didn't fight in Karbala because I had some lack of bravery, because I wasn't as brave as the ones you hear about. You heard about the bravery of Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas. You heard about the bravery of Ali al-Akbar. You heard about the bravery of Imam Hussain, but what about the bravery of Syed Al-Sajjad? At this particular moment in time I say that the Imam alayhi salatu wasalam had 5 immensely brave individuals with him in Medina. When he was leaving for Karbala, he had 5 immensely brave individuals. If there's only one thing you take away from today, let it be this. The Imam alayhi salam has 5 immensely brave individuals with him when he's leaving Medina for Karbala. The first one is Muhammad al-Hanafiya. The second one is Abdullah ibn Ja'far ibn Abu Talib. The third one is Muslim ibn Aqil. The fourth one is Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas, and the fifth one is Imam Al-Sajjad. The Imam leaves Muhammad al-Hanafiya in Medina. He leaves Abdullah ibn Ja'far in Mecca. He sends Muslim ibn Aqil to Kufa, and he does not give the permission for jihad to Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas. And Imam Al-Sajjad is sick. If the Imam had desired fighting, I swear to you by Allah, in a state of wudu on this mimbar of the Holy Prophet, that if these 5 had come into the battlefield of Karbala, 10,000, 30,000, 100,000, they would have all been finished. Can we have one more salawat? But the Imam distributes his strength. Why? To show I haven't come here for fighting. There's a greater purpose to this battle. But Imam Al-Sajjad stands in the court of Yazid to prove that don't doubt my shuja'ah, my bravery. It's no less than Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas. It's no less than Imam Hussain. Indeed, there are 3 things in which there can be no surpassing of an Imam. It's how to recognize an Imam. Number 1, knowledge. The Imam of the time is the most knowledgeable individual in his respective time. Number 2, generosity. The Imam of the time is the most generous person in his time. And number 3, bravery. The Imam of the time is the bravest person in his time. Jihad will take different forms. Sometimes it will be fighting, sometimes it won't be fighting. But there cannot be jihad greater. Holy Prophet of Islam says there is no jihad greater than standing in front of an oppressive tyrant and speaking the truth. Syed Al-Sajjad in the court of Yazid proves that this is what the Imam of the time has to do. Stand in front of the oppressive tyrant and still speak the truth with no fear from him. Indeed, it's Yazid who becomes fearful. Once the sermon is completed, what happens? Once the sermon is completed, the emissary, the ambassador of the Holy Roman Emperor stands up and he says what? He says, Yazid, I am the 33rd descendant of Musa's brother Harun, and yet where I live, people still pick up the dust from beneath my feet and put it on their heads. That's how much they respect me. I'm the 33rd descendant of Musa's brother Harun. This is the grandson of your prophet, whom you believe in, whom you believe is the prophet. And this is what you've done to him? He says, we have a place where I live, where there is a footprint of Maryam Salamullah alayha. And people come there to do tawaf around that place. We've made it into a shrine. And this is what you did to the son of the daughter of your prophet? Against every single international protocol. Every single international protocol. Diplomats have immunity. You can't kill them. Against every single international protocol, Yazid orders for him to be killed. He starts to smile. Yazid asks him, why are you smiling? You're about to die. He says, last night I had a dream. Last night I had a dream, and I didn't understand the meaning of that dream up until now. I had a dream that the messenger of the Muslims, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, had come to meet me, and he said to me, you're going to be joining me very soon. I was confused. What do I, a Christian, have to do with the messenger of the Muslims? Why am I going to go and meet him? But now it makes sense. I recite the kalima. He says, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. He says, now kill me. Now kill me. Because I would rather die than stand in this court where you have annihilated and violated the family of your own Prophet. At this particular moment, Yazid calls out for the adhan to be given. He calls out for the adhan to be given. The adhan is given. The Imam stops his sermon. The Muazzin says, Allahu Akbar. The Imam repeats after him. Says, surely Allah is greater than anything that can be imagined. The Muazzin says, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. The Imam says, every single part of my body bears witness that Allah is one and there is no Allah other than Him. Then the Muazzin says, Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. The Imam says, I order you, for the sake of the Muhammad whose name you just mentioned in the adhan, stop the adhan. He stops the adhan. The Imam turns to Yazid. He says, Yazid, this Muhammad whose name was just mentioned in the adhan, is he your grandfather or is he mine? Is he your grandfather or is he my grandfather? If you say he's your grandfather, you're a liar. And if you say he's mine, answer me, why have you done this to the family of the Prophet? Why have you killed us? Why have you taken us as prisoners? Why have you done all of these things? I am positive. This majlis, we're commemorating the martyrdom of this great man. I am positive that when the Imam ﷺ had that poison and he left this world, it is mentioned, historians narrate, that the Imam had a very grand funeral in Medina. The streets of Medina were full of people in the funeral of the Imam. I am positive that when the funeral was being taken, the Imam ﷺ in his corpse, in that coffin that he was being carried in, will have thought back to Karbala. Will have imagined Karbala. He would have relived that moment. Every Imam has his own place. But consider this, it's enough to cry, it's enough to weep, it's enough to wail, it's enough for the musibat of Syed Al-Sajjad that there is no Imam who assumes the office of Imamat in the battlefield other than Imam Al-Sajjad. Can there be more tragic circumstances than taking up the responsibility of Imamat on the day of Ashura? On the day of Ashura. I am positive that the Imam would have thought back to this. He would have relived that moment. He would have thought to himself that here I am with such a grand funeral. But it was only 35 years ago when my father lay on those burning sands of Karbala. Nobody even willing to give him a kafan. Nobody even willing to bury him. And there I was. I had a yoke in my neck. My hands were tied. My legs were tied together. I was unable to give my father a burial. I was unable to give the grandson of Rasulullah a funeral. He would have turned to Medina. He would have said, Ya Rasulullah, this is what they did to your grandson, that they buried their own dead. But they left the grandson of the Holy Prophet under those burning skies, on that burning sand of Karbala. Ala wa la'natullahi على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون.